Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from Tokyo. Welcome to our official side event of the UN High-Level Dialogue on Energy, integrated approach to boost SDG 7 and climate-relevant SDGs action for sustainability in the Asia-Pacific. This is exactly first side event, I think, of this Ministerial Level Thematic Forum side event. And thank you very much for joining from all over the world. I'm Junichi Fujino from the IGES. I'm today's facilitator. We have quite a rich of the speaker who joined this process to support the UN to develop the scientific or also the practical output for preparing the document that will be launched within this week. So today we have good members, and then in the very beginning, I'd like to invite the Dr. Armida. She is the Undersecretary General of the United Nations and the Executive Secretary of UNESCAP, and she kindly prepared a video message. So please take a look at her video. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. The theme of this side event explores the issues raised in the report of Technical Working Group 3, Enabling SDGs through Inclusive, Just Energy Transition. I congratulate Professor Takeuchi, all the other experts, and the co-lead UN agencies, DESA, ESCWA, and WHO, who contributed to this excellent report. COVID-19 continues to impact the countries of the Asia-Pacific region. As we plan for the post-pandemic era, staying on course for SDGs and the energy transition is critical. Climate change actions need to be accelerated, or the effects on our climate will be irreversible. As the region's economic engine restarts, we cannot return to the high carbon, high pollution, resource-intensive model of the past. The report highlights several important recommendations for stakeholders on how to realize an inclusive and just energy transition. It recognizes the deep relationship that energy has with the economy and environment, and how the energy transition can be developed to address inequality, grassroots development, and gender issues. The recommendations of the report fit very well with the report of Technical Working Group 2 on the energy transition, which is co-led by ESCAP, IRENA, and UNEP. Throughout this highly collaborative effort, the UN agencies, global champion countries, and diverse group of experts of all 5 technical working groups have outlined the collective actions necessary in the coming decade that would make a lasting difference for people, planet, and prosperity. It is my hope that the reports being presented this week at the Thematic Ministerial Forums will help navigate the challenging road ahead. Collectively, we are convinced that the high-level dialogue on energy to be convened by the United Nations Secretary-General in September 2021 will be a turning point, reigniting ambitions and boosting collaborative actions for a better future for all. Excellencies, at the regional level, we have been emphasizing these messages through our work on SDG 7 and broader regional cooperation efforts. We have highlighted the need for a green recovery that places investment supporting the SDGs at the center of recovery plans. At our recent Commission session, we outlined a 4-point agenda to assist countries of the region in putting their recovery on the right track. Broadening social protection, investing in a sustained recovery, strengthening connectivity and supply chain, and mending a broken relationship with nature. I look forward to learning more from the perspective of the experts invited to this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Armida and her team to prepare sending this quite the important message to us. Thank you so much. Okay, then next, then I'd like to invite Mr. Minoru Takada. He's the team leader of the Division of the Sustainable Development for the UN. And his team and the organize all the kind of procedure of preparing the document and then Ministerial Forum, Thematic Forum. So I know you are quite busy and then it's very early morning, but yeah, please have your talk for the audience. So thank you very much, Takada-san.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Fujino-san. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to join this side event organized by IGES. I'd like to thank Professor Takeuchi, whose leadership has been enormous in supporting all the processes. So thank you very much. So come back to the high-level dialogue energy. Why we are actually meeting? Yeah. So there are two big agendas that we, of course, we have to address. Number one, 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. That's SDGs. Sort of, embodies the essence of the 2030 agenda. And then secondly, we have Paris Agreement on climate change. We have to keep our planet safe. And now from the energy side in particular, it's going to be very important to meet 1.5 degrees target, and there's a lot to do that. So high-level dialogue energy comes at this time to meet those two main objectives that the global community would have to deliver. What does that entail? Meaning that we have to meet SDG 7, which is the goal on energy by 2030, which has multiple aspects. The first and foremost, the achieving universal access to electricity and clean cooking solutions. And then including increasing renewable energies and doubling the efficiency improvement. And then secondly, toward 2050, we have to achieve net zero. So energy system is such a sort of, large player when it's come to the greenhouse gas emission reductions effort. So there needs to be a systemic transformation in energy. So we'll be able to achieve the net zero. So those are the two things that we have to be at the center when we are discussing the energy agenda toward high-level dialogue energy to meet in September. So this week we are meeting in this sort of 1 week effort to be able to discuss the processes as well as the content orientation of high-level dialogue energy around the 5 topics: energy access, energy transition, and enabling SDGs through inclusive just energy transitions, the innovation, technology and data, and finance and investment. So in order to be able to do so, we have assembled 5 technical working groups, and then many of the panelists are able to contribute to the technical working groups. We'll be launching each of the reports every day. Today, we are launching technical working group report on energy access, and then there will be 5 reports. And collectively, we are going to see the recommendation of them will form somewhat sort of global roadmap to achieve SDG 7 and net zero emissions by 2050. Now, that's a global picture here. Now, if we look at Asia and the Pacific region, obviously, this is a region home to the most number of people. And by definition, it is most diverse. So what we'll do and will actually make a difference. In fact, it is going to be the deciding factor to achieve whether it is we'll be able to do SDG 7 achievement by 2030 or net zero emissions by 2050. Just take a look at energy transition. Challenge of energy transition in this region is just enormous. Now, even if so, we'll have to get to somehow 2050 net zero emissions point. There will be multiple pathways that each of the countries will have to generate. So in recognition of that, the technical working group number 3 report talked about multiple transitions pathways, but they all have to be inclusive and just so that we'll be able to take care of everybody's needs. Now, this is not easy, but this is where we need to learn today in this side event and also throughout the week, how we can actually do it, taking consideration of so many needs. and aspiration of the people in the region and globally. So I think this is one of the central topics that we will have to actually sort of face. That, okay, of course, we have to provide everybody electricity and clean cooking for sure. Of course, we have to keep the temperature within 1.5 by 2050, and for that, net zero is needed. But that's not sufficient because there are so many people whose needs are not met right now. And I think energy transitions and energy access would have to be used to facilitate delivery of those development goods and services that enable people's aspirations to grow. So I think this is a central issue that we will have to really look at, and what are the pathways, what are the options, and what are the policy choices we have to make. Then I hope that we'll be able to have a very fruitful discussion during this side event with such a sort of significant number of experts here on the join with a lot of diverse perspective. And I'm very much looking forward to having this discussion now, of course, throughout 5 days. Thank you very much once again for this opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Takada-san, for sharing the overview. Also, the quite the good expectation on expert here. Also, the members who kindly joined this process from the Asia Pacific. Yes, Asia Pacific is quite the important part for having this action. So then, let's continue discussion. Thank you so much. And so from now on, I'd like to invite the expert who really joined this process. And then we prepare like 3 kind of questions, like what is the key message from the discussion by the expert for this process. So we prepare 5 thematic documents. And then second, what is the key actions from the Asia Pacific? There are energy compact, and then we also are invited to this energy compact to boost kind of the SDG 7 action. Also, the role of integrated approach. I think this is quite important approach, but what it is, and then how we can apply these kind of integrated approach to boost SDG 7. Okay, so then now I'd like to invite expert. Dr. Lina Srivastava. She is a Deputy Director General for Science, IASA, and then she joined the Technical Working Group 3, enabling SDGs to inclusive just energy transition. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Fujino-san, and thank you to Takeuchi-san and IGES, and also UNESCAP for having me over to share some of my thoughts on this critically important subject that we are addressing ourselves to today. What I will do in response to the questions that were just highlighted is pick up a couple of things from the Technical Working Group 3 report, which I would like to highlight and support them with some of my own thoughts in response to the questions asked, and I hope through that process contribute a little bit to this particular session. So Technical Working Group 3, which I'm representing, I guess, over here, is really talking about enabling the Sustainable Development Goals through inclusive and just energy transition. So it essentially recognizes the two-way relationship between the energy SDG and other SDGs, and the relationship or the impact of developments in other SDGs on energy as well. So that, I think, is an important message that has come out from this particular document. In terms of recommendations, there are several recommendations which are obviously around inclusive and just energy transitions. But I think a key underlying message, once again, in the report is the fact that context matters. So every country and region has to develop its own strategy, its own guiding framework for planning and implementing their transitions in such a manner that they are able to take a more cohesive and systemic approach to meeting all the SDGs, including energy and climate. So this is another key message. The fact that it has to be participatory and inclusive, and by inclusive, we are also talking about issues of gender, and including other vulnerable populations in particular, again, I think has been highlighted throughout the report. And this, we have said, has to take center stage through many mechanisms, including empowering people to look for win-win outcomes for health and education, putting children first and so on, enhancing prosperity and reducing inequality by empowering populations through modern energy access. So I think the interlinkages again are very clearly identified, but empowerment, inclusion, these are all key messages once again. Access to energy, of course, has been highlighted as being critical for both energy purposes as well as other SDGs. We also spoke about transformational changes, and this is where I will possibly branch off a little bit to share some of my own thoughts on this particular subject. Just give me half a second. What we have to do, I mean, I noted also UNESCAP's report that is a little pessimistic about how far the Asia Pacific has gone on meeting its SDGs, or the long distance that it still has to traverse. And I think it is critically important for us in this region to stop looking at incremental developments and instead focus on bold transformative changes in a systemic manner. This has also come out in the Technical Working Group 3 recommendations. That's the point that I was at. And I think we need to recognize that energy plays a dual role, one as a driver for other related SDGs to be considered coherently, and the other is where energy itself is a subject of transformation. To me, what is important, or what has come out in the last, I can say now 1.5 years, is that the COVID-19 crisis has emphasized our need to shift our focus from energy independence and energy security to energy resilience. Our earlier focus before COVID-19 was really on energy resources. Today, I think we have to address ourselves to the energy system as a whole. How strong are our supply chains internationally and domestically? How capable are we to ring-fence systems and reduce vulnerabilities? And what is the potential for bouncing back from the crises that we have been facing and we are likely to face in the future as well? Politically important considerations that have come to the fore in the COVID crisis are, of course, where are the jobs being created and how are we distributing the value add from energy developments? So transformations where energy is a subject of change, I think is also critically important. We must explore opportunities for absolute reduction in energy demand. And this can come about through sustainable consumption and production choices, through lifestyles, through patterns of urbanization. I think we really have to stop looking at urban concentration as we have done in the past and see how we can transit our economies to being more service-oriented and location agnostic. Concentration of economic power in large urban agglomerations also has resulted in significant higher quality access to social services such as education and health, and environmental services such as water and sanitation. However, digitization and digitalization breaks us from these bonds of place-based development and provide an opportunity for a better distributed, more equitable development. And I think we really need to consider this as we are going along. I must clarify that reducing energy demand is not at odds with enhancing energy access where needed. In fact, creating new models of decentralized energy production and consumption is almost a necessity for creating opportunities for affordable, climate-friendly energy access. I have long argued for this, that new technologies and new business models in areas with low capabilities and capacities is the wrong way to go about introducing solutions. It creates a parachute economy, which is unsustainable. we have witnessed several transformations in the recent past, and I think there is an opportunity for us to move forward on this as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lina, for your quite wide range of the sharing your expert, and then yes, we have also the expert from the UNESCAP. So then we may have any comment that you mentioned. UNESCAP report is a bit pessimistic, but how yes we can have more ambitious view for in Asia Pacific. Okay, thank you very much. Then next, then I'd like to invite the Professor Takeuchi Kazuhiko. He's the president of the IGES and he's a member of Technical Working Group 3, same as the Rina-san. So Takeuchi-sensei, please.
Thank you very much, Fujino-san. Distinguished speakers, dear colleagues, it is my great pleasure to be in this panel on behalf of the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, or IGES. IGES is a think tank that prioritizes integrated research on the important sustainability challenges such as climate change, biodiversity services, and sustainable consumption and production. I believe that this perspective has allowed IGES to contribute science-based solutions to Working Group 3, enabling SDGs through inclusive, just energy transitions, in which I serve as a member. Today, I hope to offer IGES' perspective on integrated approaches for energy to achieve a sustainable and decarbonized Asia Pacific based on our research. First, allow me to highlight why integration is so important. To truly recover better from the COVID-19 pandemic and create a sustainable decarbonized world, we must accelerate transformative change in our systems. As we have discussed at great length in Working Group 3, energy systems are not only the focus of SDG 7, but also is a cross-cutting issue that is relevant to all SDGs and has synergies and trade-offs. Furthermore, it is at the heart of the other global frameworks, such as the Paris Agreement, the post-2020 biodiversity framework, and the Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction. The energy transition is not only essential to meet the Paris goals and the net zero target by 2050, but also is important in the context of co-benefits for biodiversity and achieve net gain by 2050. It is also important from the disaster risk management perspective, because energy system transitions must ensure access to affordable and reliable energy for all. Given such interlinkages, we understand that how we transform our energy systems will affect all aspects of society and ultimately change the lifestyles of each person on this planet. Therefore, for the future we want, it is clear that we need to tackle these issues in an integrated manner. At IGES, we have explored the interlinkage between sustainability challenges more deeply, and I would like to share our SDGs interlinkages visualization tool to show how SDG 7 relate to other goals and targets. Renewable energy development interact with many SDGs goals and targets, particularly the social targets such as poverty eradication and gender equity. There are multiple synergies such as climate mitigation and decoupling from resource use through the replacement of fossil fuels, and a few trade-offs such as land occupation and trade-offs from fossil fuel phase-out. Effective measures are needed to maximize the synergies and minimize the trade-offs. For example, ending fossil fuel subsidies and strengthening the public-private partnership to accelerate renewable energy investment can help maximize the synergies. To minimize the trade-offs, solar sharing and co-harvest are variable approaches for addressing the job impact, just transition through stage-wise phasing out arrangements, occupational training, creation of new businesses such as green hydrogen, steel sector, and the establishment of a dedicated fund to support a just transition and economic diversification are important. Now I wish to ask my colleague, Dr. Nand Kumar, to elaborate on the mechanism of co-innovation and iterative mechanisms to jointly conceptualize, develop, and scale up technology collaboration between developing and developed countries. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Takeuchi. In the next 2 minutes, I wish to underline the what, why, and how of co-innovation. First of all, what is co-innovation? At IGES, we define co-innovation as a collaborative and iterative approach to jointly innovating manufacturing and scaling up technologies by the source and recipient countries for accelerating progress on sustainability. Now, in terms of when it comes to the how, the next question is about why co-innovation. It is important to ensure that sharing of sustainable technology between countries are transformational and can help countries accelerate to a greater climate neutral path. However, the technologies or finished products shared through conventional technology transfer has several limitations and are often unaffordable for recipient countries. By focusing on co-innovation, which is jointly conceptualizing, developing, and scaling up, there can be a greater emphasis on mutual benefits, local jobs, reduced pollution, shared capacities, and shared carbon credits. Let's move to how to operationalize co-innovation. Collaboration rather than mere transfer is at the core of technology co-innovation. The first phase involves collaboration among the source and recipient country partners by identifying sustainable technologies that are in need in the recipient countries. The second phase involves identifying the appropriate level of collaboration between the two partners. While the source country partners can offer advanced technologies, the recipient country partners can help customize and adapt to the same local context. Now, the third phase focuses on the multiple co-benefits of technology collaboration to both source and recipient partners and help the latter accelerate to a carbon neutral path. On behalf of Professor Takeuchi and IGES, I wish to extend my sincere gratitude to all for the illuminating discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Takeuchi, also Dr. Nand, for your kind of joint presentation and for sharing the kind of quite the latest scientific finding, also the how to challenge to this field. So thank you so much. Then next, I'd like to invite the Dr. Nuki Agia Utama. He's the Executive Director, ASEAN Center for Energy ACE. And he's a member of Technical Working Group 4, Finance and Investment. So over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Fujino-san. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. According to the 6th ASEAN Energy Outlook, it is estimated that 17.7 million ASEAN households still lack of electricity. But it is progressing well, as 5 countries have achieved 100% electrification rate. Currently, challenges remain in 2 other countries. The ASEAN National Target Scenarios, or ATS, that we developed in the ASEAN Energy Outlook 6, projected that most of, not all, member states expect to achieve 100% electrification rate by 2030. So it's not too far from now. In regard with the clean cooking, it is also projected at the same report, almost 140 million people still use traditional biomass for cooking. Even with APEC target scenarios, this is one of the scenarios that we developed on the ASEAN Energy Outlook. The remain challenges in achieving the clean cooking access is the challenges that we have currently, the access of having the clean cooking. And also, we also have the newly added Sustainable Development Goal scenarios. I try to close the gap by modeling switching policies from traditional biomass or kerosene to liquefied petroleum gas or LPG, some biogas and natural gas, and especially in later years, electricity stove. So the target that we have, the plan that we have is progressive from the natural gas to the electricity stove. And they would sharply reduce the share of traditional biomass from 3.9 of TPES, or total primary energy supply, in 2017 to only less than 1.2% in 2025, and hopefully will be zero in 2040. Regarding with renewable energy, the targeted scenarios that we have would see the share of RE in total final energy consumption, which is excluding electricity in this case, grow from 8% from 2005, which is 21.2 million ton oil equivalent, to 15% in 2030, around 80.6 million ton oil equivalent, and 17% in 2040, approximately around 120 million ton oil equivalent. In regard with the APS or APEC scenarios, the increase would be even greater to 18% of total final energy consumption, or 88 million ton oil equivalent in 2030, and 26%, or around 155 MTUE in 2040. Both scenarios would achieve the SDG 7 target to substantially increase the share of energy demand met by RE. That's what we hope. In regard with energy efficiency, both scenarios also enable the ASEAN to meet SDG 7 target on energy efficiency. By 2025, the energy intensity in the region would be reduced by 30% from 2005 levels. As of 2017, the region had achieved 21.6% reduction. And related to the net zero, only few countries officially noted such plan in latter half of the century. Others, such as, for example, Indonesia, have entertained such ideas. To really achieve that, all strategies above need to be enhanced. Most importantly, the national and regional condition of ASEAN member states need to be well considered to achieve the just energy transition. In regard with initiative ideas to encourage stakeholders, IGES, ASEAN Center for Energy, as a think tank and catalyst, will assist Southeast Asia member states to ensuring that the APEC targets or ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation target to be executed well. As mentioned above, such target will lead to the achievement of SDG 7, with additional homework on the clean cooking access, and also ASEAN Power Grid, also one of the efforts by member states to increase regional electrification as well as increase the potential share of RE. The two critical points are required. First, the approach that is based on socio-economic concern and incentive need to be pursued, especially in clean cooking issues. Second, the intensive involvement of the industrial and academic sectors to gain the advantage of triple helix between academic, industrial sector, and policymakers must be priority in all development programs. Therefore, we thought that Energy Compact would be crucial and timely initiative to assist and accelerate the SDG 7 achievement in the region. Our organization, ASEAN Center for Energy, implementing the ASEAN Climate Change and Energy Project ASEP, and the acknowledgement of new outcome-based strategies on energy climate actions further commented on the regional commitment in accelerating the climate SDG action led by the organization. The challenges that we face and will still be relevant stem from the silos between sectors, both environmental and energy sectors. The need to really integrate multi-stakeholders in concerted action. We believe that IGES and regional network would play a critical role on this. So we realizing that in the region there are two sectors that sometimes not communicated very well on these issues on the climate change. So environmental department, energy department, environmental department usually designing the NDC, but energy, one of the sector who release plenty of emission in each country. So therefore the communication amongst two sectors is very important. Our study revealed that sometimes, most of the time, this communication is not happening. So additional thought that will be in the socioeconomic facts, there is the focus on the countries in recovering the economy after COVID-19 pandemic. I think it's quite important because most of the member states currently are focusing on the economic recovery rather than increasing the share of RE or focusing on the energy transition. But they were on those because later that day in 2040 or 2050, based on the same study that we have, we're going to be the imported fossil fuel, the whole region, not imported fossil fuel, all coal, gas, as well as, of course, oil, which is we already become the net importer in the year 2000. And support from international community is a tough time and will be critical as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nuki, for kind of a perfect presentation in 7 minutes. Thank you so much. Also, yeah, it's a very important role you already have, ACE, for having like energy transition, and not only just energy, but also how to include the other SDGs or how to fit the local needs. And then, yeah, now I think, yeah, we discuss about the energy compact, and then, yeah, your organization is quite a key, you have quite a key role. So thank you so much. And then next, then I'd like to invite Mr. Nazmul Haq. He is a director and then a head of advisor infrastructure development company limited, ID code. So, and he's also a member of the technical working group for finance and investment. So over to you, Nazmul-san.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Can I have my slides on, please? Yeah. So let me start with a quick introduction about the company I am representing, ITCOL. It is a government-owned development financial institution in Bangladesh, and with a specific mandate to finance and develop sustainable infrastructure, renewable energy, and energy efficient projects in Bangladesh. So I was a member of the technical working group 4, which actually looked into innovation, technology, and data, not finance and investment, maybe miscommunication. So, and the areas that we looked into is how to bring in innovation, technology, and data, which could support achieving SDG by 2030, as well as the net zero emission by 2050. Well, during my delivery, I'll bring in certain recommendations that we have discussed in that working group. I would also like to share some of my practical experiences around those achievements during my professional career. So innovation, as we all know, is a cross-cutting issue which affects all the other 4 thematic groups as well in terms of their achievement and target. So one of the core area regarding innovation that we discussed is that we are actually lagging quite far behind. So many of the underlying assumptions regarding innovation which were required to achieve the net zero emission by 2050, many of those are still at a very early stage of development. So that is the backdrop which was identified. In terms of recommendation, quite a different underlying pillars were considered related to sustainability of innovation. There are issues related to acting local. There are issues related to setting a very ambitious target. So while we discussed and I thought about the consideration of Asia Pacific, I thought that I'll bring in certain elements out of this discussion and link those discussions with some of the practical experiences that we have as an institution and see whether we could have a learning effect for other similar situations to follow. So regarding how to stimulate SDG 7 achievement by 2030. So I'll discuss 4 specific points here during my delivery. The first one being acting local. My personal opinion is this is quite important, and the example that I have brought in here is improved cook stove initiative, the clean cooking solution, which we launched a few years back, under which we have already mobilized financing for 2.6 million improved cook stoves. So that's basically 2.6 million families brought in under the clean cooking mechanism. And as we can see from the data here, each of the improved cook stove saves biomass as well as greenhouse gas emission. And given the numbers that we have, this makes quite a good contribution. So while I say act local, what was the innovation here? The innovation here was the business model. The innovation here was focusing on local technology, bringing in local engineering institutions in terms of developing the right cooking solution, which is both culturally as well as from the affordability side acceptable to the beneficiaries. So a good example, I believe, for many of the countries having similar situation regarding access to clean cooking solution could be looked into. The next point I would like to bring in is not a technology innovation, but more innovation in terms of model development, has some overlapping concept with finance and investment. Quite a popular and well-known global program around off-grid electrification, and quite a flagship program of our institution as well regarding off-grid electrification, which is the IGES Solar Home System program. So this program, although it has reached its maturity phase now, has supported installation of 5 million solar home system all over the country and covering about 12% of the country's population entirely. So this had a quite interesting and sustainable business model where we brought in local expertise in terms of the microcredit expertise of Bangladesh, as well as we brought in private sector in terms of technology delivery, as well as government policy support. Once we reached the top tier of the customer segment who could afford purchasing such systems, the bottom of the pyramid sector was actually supported by the government with a targeted grant initiative, which actually ensured the government commitment of no one should be should be left behind, and an inclusive arrangement. Next slide, please. Two other experience that I would like to share, which is the first one being here, accept limitations and evolve. My message here is that each country has its own sets of limitation, which, and as we often say, that one model doesn't fit all. So which also was faced by us being a very land constrained country. And despite the intention to bring in a lot of renewable energy, in particular the solar energy, where there were good potential for the country, there were land scarcity. So we tackled this challenge by bringing a lot of unused rooftops, in particular the industrial ones, and eventually quite a vibrant solar rooftop model was developed in the country, along with other policy support like net metering and government low-cost financing initiatives. Last but not the least is the innovation versus adoption. I understand that while we wait for innovation to take place, probably there will be many locked-in investment in the country, and we noted that for certain sectors like cement, steel, we just have one investment cycle till 2050 because these are quite long duration assets we are talking about. So what we have done, we as a country, we did not focus a lot of core innovation, rather focused on adoption of the best available technology so that we do not lose out and end up having a lot of locked investment, which is difficult to correct in the future. There are quite a few other points, but I believe the time is up. Thank you very much. We can't hear you. You are on mute.
Sorry. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, and thank you very much, Nazumura-san, for sharing the quite very good practices on the ground. And then, yeah, you are like a real person to promote kind of these lessons in Bangladesh and then other region. It's quite great. Thank you so much. Then, last but not least, I'd like to invite Mr. Hongpen Liu. He's a director, Energy Division, UNESCAP. Thank you very much for co-organizing this side event. He is the co-lead of the technical working group to energy transition. So over to you, Hongpen-san.
Thank you, Junichi-san, for this opportunity to join this discussion and also to co-organize this site event. ESCAP is co-lead with URENA and the UNEP for the Technical Working Group 2 on energy transition. So we work with the Technical Working Group members and also to get a lot of support from them, provide the input in verbal and written form during and between each of our meetings. That also provide good foundations to finalize the report. We also benefit from the global champion countries from this theme, that including Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Denmark, Germany, India, Nigeria, Spain, and the United Kingdom for their contributions and the support for the input to this technical working group report. So I just want to briefly share with you some points from our report. And I will not go through the details of the recommendations since the executive summary already uploaded to a high-level dialogue website, which already have the details of the 11th recommendations. So the main point I want to share is the first, a major transformation of the energy sector is required to address the challenges. In particular, providing universal access and GHG emissions reduction, enhance energy systems resilience, etc., and to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement. The ultimate goal is net zero by middle of the century. And second, transformation of the energy sector offers opportunities for sustained economic development, social inclusion, energy security, improved health, job creation, and other societal benefits. And the third point is energy transition is happening and being expanded and scaled up rapidly everywhere globally. And the next point is enhance the international and regional cooperation is essential to facilitate the sharing of experiences and access to clean energy research and technology, including renewable energy, energy efficiency, and advanced hydrogen and biofuel technologies, and integrated power market and the investment in regional integration of energy infrastructures. South-South cooperation can play a significant role, especially in the exchange of experiences and the best practices. And the last point is the COVID-19 pandemic has had a large short-term impact on energy transition. However, it provides opportunities from the physical stimulus packages that many countries have launched or are putting in place to build back better and invest in low carbon policies and programs with significant positive benefits for employment and the environment. So we have these 11 policy recommendations, as I mentioned earlier. And this also focuses on different areas which provide the directions to be as a consideration for the government to think about. So the report is an auspicious and invaluable opportunity for action. As you know, the fact that it's just the energy transition, as the previous speaker all mentioned, the just energy transition must take place is not in question. The question is how to implement the transition. Especially like for this region, we look at the phase out of coal. So along this process, the just transition phase out of coal, there are a lot of issues and challenges. We have to work together and to make of this transition is just and also inclusive. As the report will be launched to support the deliberations at this Ministerial Forum on Energy Transitions, which is also started from today, and also the official launch will be on the 23rd June. I believe that the policy recommendations that are now ready to be brought to higher level discussions and be showcased as scaling up actionable opportunities from the Ministerial Forum and the high-level dialogue on energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hompen-san, for sharing your co-lead section, energy transition and then action. It's really important. Okay, then thank you very much for also joining, supporting this time management. We have 10 minutes for discussion. And then at first, we got like one comment from the floor, like about the co-innovation to my colleague, Dr. Nandu. So then I'd like to invite Nandu-san for sharing this question, also the response to this question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fujino-san. In fact, this is a very interesting question about what's the difference between co-innovation and innovation. Traditionally, innovation happens in closed doors and sort of laboratories or some sort of closed environments. But co-innovation is basically about collaboration between source and recipient countries. At IGES, what we try to define is that co-innovation as a collaborative and iterative approach to jointly innovating, manufacturing, and scaling up technologies by source and recipient countries for accelerating progress on sustainability. This also is sort of an alternative mechanism to conventional technology transfer, which is which usually happens as a sale of technology. But co-innovation is where both the partners' contributions are recognized. So this is the fundamental difference between co-innovation and innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anand-san, for your response, and then we may continue this kind of discussion. And I also would like to invite all speakers for this panel to having kind of additional thoughts or any finding from the other speakers' talk, or also kind of final thoughts, because we only have another 7-8 minutes. So may I invite Lina-san first?
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute.
Sorry,
sorry. Yeah. So just to take forward one of the points that I did want to stress also in my presentation, and that has to do with the data. I think it is critically important for us to recognize that data and the pessimism that we feel about being able to achieve the various SDGs that we have in place needs to go beyond just a simple presentation of the distance which is yet to be traversed, because that basically focuses our attention on our failures and can become an obstacle or a demotivator for action. I think it is critically important for us to move beyond the data to focus on the analytics and the narratives that highlight opportunities. I think this was a presentation, we heard a little bit of it in the ITCOL presentation, not exactly in the context of data, but in the context of the fact that there are certain opportunities that are available to a country, even though data may not support it. And I can take the example of the Energy Vendor program in Germany or the offshore wind program in the UK, where if you went purely by data and very simple economic analysis, we would probably say that these are not the technologies for these countries and they're not going to help move the countries along the lines of sustainable development. but through some very proactive measures, including subsidizing the future with present resources, I think both these countries have shown the way by which we can create opportunities where none exist and open the door for other countries as well. A similar thing happened in India with telecom transformation that took place. So once again, I think I just want to highlight the fact that we need to be looking for opportunities. We need to be thinking out of the box. And if we want to be on that pathway from 2030 to 2050, we really have to be aggressive in the transformations that we want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rina-san, for sharing the importance of the data. It's quite true. And then I'd like to invite Professor Takeuchi last, and then next I'd like to invite Dr. Nuki-san. So Nuki-san, do you have a final thought? Takeuchi-san. So Nuki-san, please. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Small things. Takeaways coming from the last discussion after senior officials meeting last week, and today we have a special ministerial meeting. There are some issues if we looking at the energy transition to push forward. We have to really consider the geographical issues apart from the financial issues that I just mentioned previously. So all of these energy transition approach, usually through RE, renewable energy is very geographical sensitive. So looking at those perspectives, that would be very beneficial for us to move forward increasing the share of RE. Moreover, apart from that, we have also to consider the traditional energy, part of the energy transition. We cannot just pick this one, leave the other one away. So we have to really think on the whole energy spectrum perspective to move forward on realizing the energy transition, which is affordable energy, reliable as well as sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nuki. So then I also would like to invite Mr. Nazumuru-san.
Thank you. I think there is no denying the fact that the pandemic has hit us all. And I believe, and also given the quite pessimistic, I agree with Lina, the view that is given in the Asia-Pacific outlook, I believe it is important now for us to look into the post-pandemic realignment of realistic SDG achievement targets. We must set country-specific prioritization of targets. I'm sure the better cooperation and partnership we need to look into, and we have to work on meaningful, cost-effective, and sustainable innovation. So that is my message.
Thank you very much. And then I also would like to invite Mr. Hongpen Liu-san. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I agree with the previous speakers. I think it's very important that since we already have a clear target, the 2030 agenda and SDG 7, and also the Paris Agreement. Then we have to develop a roadmap for different countries, because the diversification of Asia-Pacific developing countries, they need a different approach for energy transition. So that roadmap will be based on their own situation and provide the specific kind of solutions through this regional cooperation to address these issues and the challenges. I think the important thing, they have their own target, ambitious, and then they have their own solutions. Then the regional cooperation will work together, all the countries, to address these challenges and to get the best solutions for their to achieve their goals. And finally, ultimate goal is net zero by middle of this century. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hongpen-san. And then last but not least, I'd like to invite Professor Takeuchi for your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Kino-san. My remark is very brief. First, I would like to echo to what Lina already mentioned. in Asia, we have very diversified countries, and the stage of the scientific data is so different. So based on the collaboration among these Asian countries, we need to standardize the data so that we can further develop our strategy on energy transition. And second one is that many countries are already declaring the net zero by the middle of century, but there are very weak scientific background how to achieve these ambitious goals. So a science-based approach needs to be strengthened in addition to the political willingness as well as the private sector's contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Takeuchi, for the kind of summary of this today's side event. Thank you very much for joining today's session, the audience. And so it's quite early morning in New York or late time in Japan, but I appreciate your kind joining in this session. This is kind of final information, but we also support like local action, like voluntary local review. Next week, same Monday, we have a voluntary local review webinar side event inviting the cities who will launch a new VAR reporting. So if you have time, please join us, because this scheme is also quite a good scheme to support like SDG 7 and then other SDGs for pushing the boost the like energy action, because as Lina-san mentioned, data is quite important, and then a follow-up and review system. This is a key system of the SDGs 2030 agenda, also like Paris Agreement. And so scientists or business or like organization or private sector citizens, we yes, can work together with these kind of schemes. So thank you very much again for your kind participation, joining, contributing to this process. And then please join the also the formal ministerial session to know much more the what happened in this area, SDG 7 and others. So thank you again. Arigatou gozaimashita from Tokyo. And then please have a good day or good night. And then hopefully see you sometime virtually or sometime physically. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.